Today I'm going to cover an article that will show you how the media is using certain small life situations to push the idea that we are in America and Canada racist and Islamophobes and bigoted and just overall awful people to all minorities out there. So there's series after series of articles that, with no proof and with only a narrative, are written to really expose the poor victims out there, the victims of the white race. So this is a perfect example that I came across. Now the article title is, and it's in the crime section of the Huffington Post. Now this was posted in the US, but for some reason the Canadian journalist decided it would be a really good idea to recycle this article and publish it up here in Canada as well. And the implication is that we are also just as racist, Islamophobe, bigoted people up here in Canada as the main population in the US. So here we go, under the crime division. It's very serious article. In the name of hate, Muslim women face road rage behind the wheel. So here we go. I'm going to read part of the article. I'm going to show you how the journalist who wrote this article, the intent is to divide us. The intent is to create a victim class and then to show how the people around that victim are just awful. And the victim is always a minority, so in this case is a hijab wearing woman. But in other cases it could be a black person, it could be a native Indian that we have up here in Canada. It could be whatever the minority is. That's what they're going for. And of course the arch nemesis in the story is always a white male. So you'll see it's not even my words. This is what the article has put in here. So here we go. A Ford 150 pickup truck was driving so close to Arwa Omar's car that she couldn't see its front grille in her rearview mirror. The 24-year-old administrator was on her way to work in New Brunswick, heading south on New Jersey Turnpike from her home in Clifton early Friday morning. Even though Omar was traveling at 60 miles per hour, the pickup driver kept speeding up and flashing his high beams. Aggressive driver, Omar thought, as she moved into the right lane to get out of his way. She was used to it. After all, New Jersey drivers don't have a bad reputation for nothing. But the truck didn't pass her. Instead, the Ford sped up alongside her. Suddenly, the driver, a youngish white man, the evil white man came out, with blonde hair and a scruffy beard, began screaming at her. At first, I thought maybe he was in a hurry, but he kept driving at my pace to scream at me, Omar said. It was freezing outside, but he kept his windows rolled down, just screaming. Omar was sitting in her friend's driveway earlier this summer here in the commuter town northwest of New York City, as she recalled the story of what happened on that January morning 2 years ago. Terrified, she slowed down and moved directly behind him to avoid his verbal attacks and erratic driving. But it didn't matter. The driver kept slamming on his brakes, picking up the pace, and then slamming on his brakes over and over. Although Omar couldn't hear what he was shouting, she knew what it was about. Now, did you guys catch that? I'm going to read that part again. Although Omar couldn't hear what he was shouting, she knew what it was about. In her gut, she said she knew he was attacking her for her hijab. He was probably calling me a terrorist or something, Omar told HuffPost. I just knew. So there we go. The article continues. It brings in another example of another woman who had some kind of a vague incident like this, who thinks it might have been because of her hijab, and on and on. So, okay, let's break this down a little bit. First off, the claim is that as a group, these hijabi wearing women are systematic targets of road rage across America. This is what the article is saying. However, when you come up with that, the very best thing you can tell me is that this one woman was driving and then there's another jerk driver came alongside her, sped up and stopped and do that over and over, and you don't hear what he's saying, so you're just gonna tell us what he said? You don't know what he said. You for all we know, this hijabi wearing woman could be like the worst driver. I mean, in her specific case, I don't know, I wasn't there, you weren't there, none of us were there. She was there, but she claims she did not even hear what this person said to her. But she just knew it in her gut that it was because she wore a hijab. This is, okay, and so that's the first part. She admits she didn't hear it, but she feels in her gut. So first of all, that's not evidence. I'm sorry, but that is not evidence, and that's not even a valid statement. If you don't know what he said, then shut the hell up, right? You don't know what he said. What the hell? We don't know what he said. Now, the second part is, if there's such a systemic problem against these hijabi wearing women in our society, and this is of all the people that are suffering through this, all the poor wearing hijabi women who are suffering through this, the only best example you could find for us, Huffington Post, is a woman who says she doesn't even know what the guy said. And that's the very best of all the people out there, of all the women targeted. You find us this woman who doesn't even know and admitted herself. So, again, Huffington Post is a pretty terrible journalism. This is where you can see it. This is no journal. This is not actual news reporting. This is propaganda. This is propaganda. They're basically making stuff up, and the level of journalism has gone down to garbage. And now it's just about facts. It's about feelings and no longer facts. So there we go. So that's another thing. Now, these articles keep popping up all the time. And the hope is that you won't catch these kinds of small things. The fact that the woman didn't even know. The fact they hope you won't read it. They just want you to read the title. And the title was pretty alarming when you read it. I'll just repeat it right here. In the name of hate, Muslim women face road rage behind the wheel. All Muslim women face road rage, right? This is what they're saying, in the name of hate. But they can't even find, in this article, they can't even provide us one example of a woman who was targeted because of her hijab. We don't know. This woman, the Omar woman, could have very, very well been a terrible driver. And it already says in the article that New Jersey people are terrible drivers. I drive to Toronto sometimes. There's a lot of terrible drivers out there. And you can't just assume that because you wear a hijab, that's why. People don't have time for that on the road. They don't give a shit what you're doing. But they do give a shit how you're driving. If you drive like an asshole on the roads, some people out there will come after you. I've been come after in Montreal when I was driving in Montreal. A guy almost even came out of his car after he stopped in front of me. People are crazy. People are crazy. And I didn't sit here and go victimize myself going, oh my God, it's because I'm a woman. No, it's because the guy thought my stop was too long and he was in a hurry and he wanted to get ahead of me. So that's why. People don't go after people for your race, for your hijab, for your gender, for any of that stuff on the road. It's always about how you were driving. So anyways, but one last thing about these hijabi wearing women who come here to Canada and in the States and then complain that people look at them wrong. Let me tell you something. When I look at a hijabi wearing woman, I can't help but guess, or ask myself, is this woman wearing this by force? Does she really want to wear this? And if she does want to wear this, why in the world would she want to wear this here in Canada where you don't have to wear this sign of oppression? The hijab is a sign of dedication to the Sharia, and it is an obligation to wear according to the Quran. It is not a choice. The women under Islam do not have a choice to wear the hijab. It is a mandatory practice. And they keep selling it as a choice. But this is why sometimes you'll have people look at women in a hijab, because it's not part of our culture. In America, we don't have hijabis here. We don't have a lot of them. And when we see one, we look and we're like, oh boy, like what is her story, right? That's just the reality. If you come to a culture where it's not a predominant option, you cannot be surprised when people look at you differently, and you cannot call people Islamophobic for simply looking at you differently because you're wearing something that is not part of our culture. that's just the way. You just have to get used to it and stop complaining and being a victim, part of a minority group, victimized, perpetually victimized. But anyways, guys, my channel is dedicated to making videos that show the corruption in the media and how many elements of Islam are incompatible with the way of living in the West. And this article is just another one. It's very possible that the Muslim Brotherhood or Qatar or Saudi Arabia has some hand in the overarching guidance of this article, as in they would have directed journalists to write this kind of stuff periodically to remind people that victims are Muslims and that the perpetrators are always white men. So just don't fall for it. Just take a second to think about it, and especially pay attention to the details in the article where you have a Muslim woman in this particular case does not even know what the guy said to her, but feels it was because of her hijab. That is total nonsense. It is garbage, and in any court of law of a civilized society, this would be thrown out the window and the case would be dismissed. So there you go. I hope everybody has a great day, and I will talk to you in the next one.